Well, in other parts of Syria, rebels have agreed to hand over another suburb of Damascus to the government. Thousands of civilians and rebels will be forced to leave Moadamia. They've been trapped there for 3 years and were the victims of a chemical attack in 2013. And another deal is also close to being agreed, this time in Al-Waer. This is the last rebel stronghold in Homs. And it follows a handover of Daraya, also in the Damascus area, last week. The government promised to replicate this deal across the country, but the UN has voiced concern and says relocation of civilians should be voluntary. Now, the deal was seen by some as a setback for the rebels. We can talk now to Rami Khouri, who's a senior fellow at the Issam Fares Institute for the American University of Beirut. He's live in Beirut for us. So it seems very much, Rami Khouri, as if the government policy of starvation against rebel-held areas is paying off for it.
To a certain extent, yes. This deal in Moadamiyat al-Sham is one more in a series of local agreements whereby rebels who have held their ground for sometimes up to 3.5 years withstood terrible sieges of no water, no food, no medical supplies, and held their ground. But gradually they were getting to the point where they and many civilians were going to be starved to death. So the rebels have agreed to be moved out. In other cases, Daraya, for instance, they were moved out with their weapons. They felt that this was a dignified way for them to reach this agreement. They moved to Idlib, where they joined other rebel groups. In Moadamiyat al-Sham, they're having to give up their weapons, is what we hear. So each deal is a little bit different, but it's the strategy of the government to make individual deals with rebel groups in individual cities rather than a blanket agreement across the country, partly because there isn't one unified rebel movement with which to make a blanket agreement.
Now, the areas being cleared in this way seem very much to be predominantly Sunni. It's almost as if the government is creating a kind of cordon sanitaire around Damascus.
That's the accusation that some of the rebel groups make, and you have counter-accusations by the government against the rebels that they've been attacking areas that were predominantly Alawite to get Alawites out of areas where Sunnis are a majority. This is an inevitable, unfortunate part of this conflict, but deep down these sectarian issues are relatively new in terms of people fighting each other because of sectarian reasons, killing each other, or doing ethnic cleansing. Hopefully these issues will no longer be there one day when there is an agreement to restore some kind of national calm in Syria, because historically you don't have these kinds of sectarian killings or ethnic cleansings in Syria.
Of course, but the great fear is that the outcome of this bitter war, going into its 6th year, will result in a kind of balkanization of Syria along sectarian lines.
Yes, that's a problem actually all over the place. You're getting, for instance, hundreds of thousands of Christians leaving Iraq in the last 10 years. The Iraqi population of Christians has been reduced probably to 1/3 of what it used to be. You have similar issues in Syria. Many Christians in Iraq and in Egypt are concerned about tensions there. So this is a growing problem across the region, and again, it's a new problem, it's a new reality, but once this sectarian genie is let out of, this monster is let out of the bottle, it's very hard to contain it. And Libya, Yemen, other countries are facing similar stresses in terms of sectarian or tribal differences. And the answer, of course, in all of these situations is a unified agreement for the whole country in which all citizens have equal rights in a democratic and pluralistic state. They were able to do that in South Africa, Northern Ireland, and hopefully they'll be able to do that in some of the Arab countries as well. But that's not the case right now.
Rami Khouri, thank you very much.